All right, let's talk about Alo Yoga. You've seen it absolutely everywhere, right? It's all over your Instagram feed, you see it at the grocery store, it's just taken over. But how did this brand become this, cultural phenomenon basically overnight? Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with a bit of a puzzle. When you look at independent analysis of the actual product quality, we're talking durability, fabric, performance, Lululemon consistently scores higher than Alo. So, on paper, Lululemon actually makes the better legging. And that leads to the big question, the mystery we're going to unravel today. If they don't have the best product, what do they have? Well, the secret isn't in the fabric. It's in your head. Okay, so let's break down their playbook. The first thing you'll notice, and it's the most obvious part of their strategy, is how they're just everywhere. It's a masterclass in creating something psychologists call social proof. See, instead of spending millions on traditional TV ads or magazine spreads, Alo does something way smarter. They seed, or, gift, their stuff to this massive army of celebrities and influencers. The whole point is to get them photographed just living their lives, wearing Alo. So when you see Kendall Jenner grabbing a coffee in their gear, it creates this incredibly powerful social proof. It makes you feel like you're not just buying leggings, you're buying into a cool, high-status club. Now, what's so wild about this is how it taps directly into some classic, proven science of persuasion. And for that, we've got to look at the work of this pioneering psychologist, Robert Cialdini. Alamoa basically uses his principles to kind of sneak past your rational brain. So first up is something called the contrast principle. And Alo has mastered this with a really, really clever and honestly kind of gutsy pricing strategy. They start by planting this absurdly high price tag in your mind to anchor your sense of value. Just picture this. You walk into one of their stores, they call them sanctuaries. And right there, you see these super high-end Italian leather handbags from their fancy Atelier collection. And they cost thousands of dollars. Instantly, your brain goes, whoa, okay, this place is expensive. So then what happens? You turn the corner and see a pair of leggings for $128. And that contrast principle just kicks right in. Your brain doesn't register it as an expensive pair of leggings anymore. Compared to that handbag, it suddenly feels totally reasonable, maybe even like a bargain. They've completely reframed the price in your mind. Okay, next up, they use the principle of reciprocity. Cialdini found that we are just hardwired with this deep psychological need to repay favors. We hate feeling indebted to anyone. So, Alo very cleverly makes its best customers feel indebted to them by giving away something super valuable. They take their fitness app, Alo Moves, which is worth about $240 a year, and they make it completely free for their loyalty members. I mean, think about it. That is a massive gift. And it's not just a nice little freebie, it's a powerful psychological trigger. You feel this subconscious pull to pay them back. And what's the easiest way to do that? You buy more of their clothes. So you've got these clever psychological tactics, but how does it all come together in a bigger business strategy? Well, that's where we get into a philosophy inspired by the legendary investor Charlie Munger. Munger's big advice for solving really tough problems is to invert, always invert. Basically, you tackle the problem backward. Alo knew from day one that they probably couldn't beat Lululemon in a head-to-head fight on product quality. So they just flipped the problem on its head. And this, right here, is the absolute key. They didn't ask, how do we make a better legging? They asked, how do we make a cooler legging? They completely shifted their focus from utility to fashion. They branded themselves as studio to street, which is perfect for that Gen Z crowd that often cares more about aesthetics than how long something will last. And this is a perfect example of another one of Munger's ideas, the Lollapalooza effect. This is what happens when you get a bunch of psychological biases all working together at the same time. And the result is just explosive. It's not linear. For Alo, it's the social proof from all the celebrities, plus that feeling of wellness and luxury, plus the scarcity they create with their limited edition drops. You put all that together and boom, you get a perfect storm of irrational demand. But there's one final piece to this puzzle, and it's the true end game. See, it's not just about selling you one pair of leggings. The goal is to turn customers into true believers and make it psychologically really, really hard for you to ever leave the brand. Now, if you look at the data, you might think something's wrong. A huge chunk of their customers, over 80%, are just casual buyers who don't stick around. But here's the thing. Alo doesn't see that as a failure. They are intentionally creating this very clear in-group, the true believers. And then, well, everyone else is in the out-group. This is tapping into something called social identity theory, which is just a fancy way of saying that we humans get a lot of our self-esteem from the groups we belong to. So Alo isn't trying to keep every single customer. They're actually filtering for that core 16.5% who are going to go all in, adopt the entire lifestyle, spend over $600 a year, and become the brand's biggest fans. That passionate tribe, they form this powerful defensive moat around the brand. So when you start to put all these pieces together, you realize you're not looking at a clothing company at all. You're looking at a masterclass in applied psychology that's just been hiding in plain sight this whole time. So let's just recap the playbook real quick. It was never really about the clothes. First, you've got Cialdini's persuasion principles triggering that initial emotional purchase. Then you have Munger's inversion strategy, creating these huge waves of irrational demand. And finally, you have ideas from behavioral science that create that brand moat, locking in their best customers for good. It's a complete system. And really, the big takeaway from all this is that the most powerful marketing today doesn't just sell you a product. It sells you an identity. It sells you a tribe where you can belong. So the only question left for you is, now that you can see the playbook, what identity are you buying into?